A lot of people who were a part of the Roman or the revolt against Rome who lived in Gamla. And if you know something about your history, that when Gamla was destroyed, the people who remained, many of them went down to Masada, only to get hunted down by the Romans again and to be killed. But when Rome, you can still see there's a wall here, and you can still see the breach in the wall where the Romans threw the big catapults and broke the wall through. And many of the people, rather than to be enslaved and abused by the Romans, they went up on the top of the peak and jumped off. And others were able to get away, and again they headed south and went down to Masada. But I think it's a sight worth seeing. And there is there what they call one of the earliest synagogue finds in the Galilee. And for me, taking Scripture seriously, when it talks about Jesus having preached in many of the synagogues in the Galilee, I'm thinking that this is one of the maybe few of those areas where Jesus was himself. We've got 2,000 years of history, and a lot of rubble has been built up and all, and we can't say, yep, Jesus put his foot right here, but there are places where you can. And this to me is kind of one of those that, at least in my mind, I like to think that is so. But it's an incredible sight. You're going to see that and say, my goodness, how did people survive like this? But they were there on purpose, knowing that they were out of the way. They could do their planning. They could do their skullduggery work, and yet worship Jehovah at the same time. And so it was kind of an interesting kind of a place to be. But we're going to go there. We'll go to a place, I was telling Teresa about it earlier. If you look it up on a map or someplace, we're going to go to a city way up in the north of the Galilee called Dan. And we're going to see a gate that has been uncovered in the last, several years. Last time I was there, it had been uncovered. But it dates back to the time of Abraham, when Abraham had come down from Ur the Chaldees, and Dan was this kind of a travel center. And it talks about Lachish and all, and about Dan there in the Abraham story. And this stuff is just so relevant, if you know anything about the development of the northern kingdom, when the northern kingdom split away from the southern kingdom, the first king of the north, Jeroboam, put in two competing places of worship with Jerusalem. He didn't want his people going back down to Jerusalem to have to worship. So he put two competing places, and one was up there in Dan, and we'll see that, and you'll love Dan. You're going to say, hey, let's find a place to live up here. I could live in Dan. I like that. We'll see. You've been to Dan. You've seen Dan. Yeah, isn't it? It's great. Did you see the falls at Banyas?
Yes, we did.
Aren't those beautiful?
Yes.
We're scheduled to see the Banyas Falls, and it's just great stuff. It is just worth seeing. And to think, now, here Jesus and his disciples walking, which the ancient word was Caesarea Philippi, Mark chapter 8 and all. And you see Jesus and his disciples walking through here, and there's that beautiful little cold river running out of there. You can't tell me they weren't following that along, and they see those falls there at Banyas and all of that. I mean, they were all there. It was all there. And it's an incredible view. It's just an incredible view. Who said they were surprised at how small the country is?
Well, when I got this book and I started reading, and it talks about, it gives itineraries that you could follow, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says, and then take 20 minutes to go over here. I'm like, really? That's only 20 minutes from there? And then I look at the map, and it's a very small,
It is a very small
compacted country.
It really is. It really is. And I think you're going to be really engaged by it. I haven't talked with Gail yet about what we will do early in the mornings when we're in Jerusalem or anything. The other Gail, talk to my Gail about it. But if you want to get up early,
There's suppose this book mentions for
We'll-
photo people that
we'll get up early and we'll go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and hear the marvelous organ in that old rock cathedral just reverberate and be a part of that worship. And I'll even take you down. I consider there's a little chapel down there called the Chapel of the Holy Cross, which is at the real bottom of the church, and if I don't put much into sacred space, but if there's one place I'd just like to hang out for a while, it'd be there. And when I was in Jerusalem 13 days, and I would go to the church every morning early and be a part of the worship experience and all. And then I would go down to this little place, and there were no chairs in there, nothing. I just sat on the floor and kind of do a little journaling and reflecting. And it's just wonderful. Just wonderful. You'll enjoy it. But again, if we can talk about some things and want to ask some questions, things we can do while we're there, let's do it. Because again, the little bit more we know about it and how we can know about it, you've already been there, you can help us talk about some of those things, and we'll just have the time of our life. And I'm grateful to find out about Petra and all, because yeah, this is as close as sometimes we'll get. Now, we can't get to Russia. It's close too, but we can't get to Russia.
I have no desire to.
See, now,
Cairo?
technically, one of the dirtiest cities you would ever find any place. And it is scary. Cairo's scary. Yeah, and I would love to see the pyramids, but I don't even want to go to Cairo right now. Just, it ain't good. But there's a place in Jericho. There's a place in Jordan that I haven't seen up in the north. Called Jerash, and you read in
further
Mark.
north you go, you get closer to Syria. I'm not sure it's a good idea.
Oh,
but
you get to Mark chapter 5, and remember Jesus talks about, or Jesus heals the demoniac there, the Gadarene demoniac, and he's from the cities of the Decapolis. Some Bibles say the 10 cities, others call it the Decapolis. Means the same thing. Mm-hmm. But we will see one of the great cities of the Decapolis. Scythopolis, which is Bet-shean as well, and I went there the first time in 1984, and there was nothing there. They'd done no excavation, and when you see the excavation that's been done, it'll just kind of blow your mind. And I haven't seen it for 6 years, so I'm eager to see what's done yet, because it is just amazing. But we'll see that. But Jerash was one of those cities, and here it sits out in the desert all by itself. And you've got these huge stately columns. You've got all of this colonnade, and it's out in the desert. You say, how in the world did they haul all this limestone in? And slaves did it. That's what slavery was all about. And great economic system, for if you're a ruler and you want to build buildings like that. So. Pardon me?
If you're not the slave.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Now we'll talk about that too, because there's, the first century was a slave culture. Probably 35% of the country or the world was enslaved in some form or another. And when Paul says, "I am a slave of Jesus Christ," see, he's really taking on himself all of that degradation. The last thing people wanted to be was a slave, and yet he uses that language for himself to talk about his commitment to Christ. It's just amazing, So we'll have fun with that. But if you think of some things, write it down. Let's talk about it. I'm excited about it. I'm anxious to go. If I could have my way, I think I told you that I retire the 5th of March or 5th of May, and the 6th I'd be on a plane going to Israel and spending the next 3 months there. But I've married a wife, folks. She said, "No way." But yes.
Do you think we can go to Bethlehem?
Probably not right now. If it gets a little better, we can. But, Teresa, tell them just what you told me today.
So I've talked to 2 different people who've gone in the last year, and both of them said that of everywhere they went, Bethlehem was the most disappointing. It's so commercialized, and they just basically ram people in there, say, "This is where Jesus was born," and then you're done and you're out. And so it was very unsatisfying compared to visiting all the other places.
Yeah, but it's still,
I-
having been there, it's
I'm sure.
still significant. Even being rammed in.
Now, you know what I liked about it? They take you down to this little
You
room
go down to the,
and show you where
rocks.
St. Jerome translated
yeah.
the Latin Vulgate from the Hebrew and the Greek scriptures, and that was kind of interesting. to
Buried
look at.
deep into the rocks, that carved us all. That's where they lived.
Oh yeah, it is amazing.
Yeah.
It is
And
amazing.
you can buy photographs from the little boy for $1.